Hi, I'm Melissa, and this is the Book Break. And today I'm excited to introduce you to a new science fiction author, Mike Jack Stoumbos. We'll bring him right in. Hi, Mike.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited because I know you're a phenomenal writer, and I want everyone else to see your stuff. So first, did I say your last name right? Stoumbos?
Yes, Stoumbos.
Good. Okay. I keep messing up Mike's name like every time. So, okay. Mike, you have a brand new science fiction series out. Now, you've been in a ton of anthologies, but this is your first solo piece, right?
Yes, with one exception. I self-published a novel before I started teaching. So before I went into public school teaching, I self-published one a while back, but this would be the first big venture into science fiction novel writing. And this would be the series This Fine Crew, and we got to launch with Signal Out of Space just this last month. It's been really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. Well, and I started reading your series, and no surprise to me, I love it. So if y'all are science fiction fans, you want to check this out. So I love that it's This Fine Crew because in book one, you introduce us to the crew. Let's tell our viewers a little bit more about book one.
Yeah. So book one is set at the beginning of a brand new venture called the Interstellar Initiative, and it's with several different species coming from different places in the galaxy and coming to one place to attempt to work together in something that's going to be very much like the Federation from Star Trek. So their first cooperative exploration, research, non-combat, non-military. They try to tell you that all the time. And also attempting to massage some past relationships that may have been a little bit rocky and some past reputations that weren't very good. And so we get perspectives from these four different alien species that are coming in, who kind of fit what you would expect in space opera. We've got, that big furry warrior species, and then that cold-blooded reptilian species, and then the hive mind insect species, and humans. And they all have to figure out how to work together, and hopefully not kill each other along the way.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think was really interesting when I was reading your series is the species that you came up with for the series. You must have done a ton of research with this because those species are really well developed. Tell us about your process, or tell us about some of those species.
Yeah. So originally they actually had just started as archetypes. I was like, all right, what are the things that I expect to see in Star Wars or Star Trek or Stargate, anything with star in the title? Um, and so the first one that I wanted to play with was a hive mind insect species. These ones are called the teak. And that's a shortened version of their name because their name is totally unpronounceable to people with we would call normal jaws and tongues. And they were primarily inspired by the enemies in Ender's Game. And I was like, well, usually we think of insects as being the evil ones. Let's make them the primary alliance of the human species. And so the teak hive minds called in humans when humans were just starting to explore space, and they're like, we need people who are better at blowing things up than we are. Um, if you come help us out with this other enemy that we're facing, then we will help to clean up your planet and restore the environment and all of these things that we're possibly currently worried about,
Yeah.
and make it so that you can also come out to the stars and explore with us. So let's join the alliance. Very convenient for both. And so the teak, they go through these multiple molt processes where they are imprinted with new kinds of ideas and tendencies. So the main character, who is a teak, has chosen the name Paul Newman. Um,
Yeah.
and
They choose some
yeah,
funny names, or not
yes.
funny, but some interesting names,
Hmm.
like Paul Newman
Paul Newman, yeah.
or Jane Austen, or
Yep, there are a lot of Janes. There are a lot of Janes. The original like Teak Alliance, all of them that they worked with were either Janes or Johns, and so they started adapting last names, and that's where that tradition came in. But that's been part of the fun with it. And then some of the other ones we've got like I said, the large furry warrior species, and these are really I wanted to take like the Wookiees from Star Wars and the Klingons from Star Trek and maybe space orcs. And they're like, all right, what if we combine those together and play around with them? And in order to like change a little bit of the approach, I'm like, I'm going to take this main character, instead of making them the warrior, the security officer, this is going to be the science one. So she is science focused and in fact medicine focused. And you get a little bit of that, like, if I know the anatomy of the other species, here's how I can beat them in a fight if I need to. But but it's definitely much
yeah.
more of a let's twist that reputation.
And
And the
she's
other
got
one,
some stuff behind her that we're learning as we go through the book that is very interesting. So pay attention to her. And I think one of the humans on board, didn't they call her, like, she looks kind of like a werewolf?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, the werewolf or bear comparison comes up from time to time. I do actually have a lot of concept art for them, so I've drawn them out
Oh,
as
fun.
well. So I have my mental image of it, which during some of the release events, I've shown people the concept art, and there are some people who are like, "Oh yeah, that's totally what I pictured." Some people are like, "Oh, I never would have guessed that they all had tusks and an underbite." I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
that's fair. It's mentioned, but it doesn't need to be part of the mental image."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
it. And then the lizards.
And then the lizards. The lizards, the Songhari, they are actually closest to what you would expect from, a reptile race that comes on and gets to make those kinds of high-pitched, disconcerting noises like the Skeksis in Dark Crystal. And then the one in particular that we follow is an engineer who was declawed at a very young age. Because they wanted to hone her scientific prowess and get her very good at taking things apart and putting them together, as opposed to being more of a combat focused engineer. So a lot of these ones, they came out of like, how do I create a crew that is not just focused on shoot things quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and will be able to puzzle them out piece by piece. So
Yeah. Well, and
yeah.
the security officer in the crew is the human, which you
Yep.
might not think would have been the human, or a human, we should say.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we meet the crew in book 1, and then we continue, and there's some adventure in there.
Yes.
I've been experiencing it, and there's a lot of fun mystery and puzzles too.
Yeah.
So I love that when science fiction books put all of that fun mystery, so you're really
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll just read one more chapter. I think I've said that like
Yeah.
20 times now. One more chapter, one more chapter.
Yeah.
That's really fun. And then book 2, they do some more adventures. And this one
Yeah.
just came out recently.
Released yesterday. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we following, maybe I don't want to spoil it if we're following the same crew.
Yeah. So I've told some people the only spoiler that I'll give out on book 2 is that yes, it is the same 4 core characters who show up in book 1. So
Yeah.
they mostly make it through. They mostly survive. I can't say that they're not changed or maimed a little bit, but
Yeah.
the same core 4 crew continue into book 2 and into book 3. The first 3 are very much like a trilogy. Each one has its own start to finish solve of a mystery, but then some of the things that were impacted by the choices made and some of the ideas revealed in that book lead into the future books mystery and situation that they have to deal with and fix. So yeah, you get to see more with the core 4 crew, and you get to see them climb the ranks a little bit more, have some more responsibility that is actually given to them, not just the responsibility they take when they're not allowed to. Yeah.
That's awesome. And now I want to make sure that we mention your anthologies that you've been a part of, because you've been a writer for quite some time, writing short stories. Tell us about some of your anthologies you've been a part of.
Yeah. So most of this has actually been in the last 2.5 years. So I've been writing for a very long time, but I started submitting through the Wordfire Press Superstars Writing Seminars, got introduced to a couple of the right people, and my first publication in a print anthology was in Dragon Writers. And that was about 5 years ago. And that one was really cool because I was published alongside Brandon Sanderson. I was like, this is awesome. I get to be part of the thing. And since then, I've had a few others. My first like professional paying rate for short story was in Galactic Stew. And Galactic Stew is kind of what it sounds like, science fiction and fantasy stories that have to do with food. And then upcoming this year, we've got some really cool ones on deck. So The Writers of the Future, Volume 38. I was a first place winner in The Writers of the Future last year. And so that one's going to come up. And I'm also, nominated for another award that I get to find out about in April based on that. And we've got a few
Wow.
others in the near future, which are going to be a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And Writers of the Future, to be a first place winner, like, I don't know if our viewers quite understand how big of a deal that is, because they launched quite a few New York Times bestsellers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited. So you're going to be in the Writers of the Future anthology coming out this year?
Yes, coming out this April. Yeah.
Okay. That's really exciting. So April 2022, folks, make sure you get the Writers of the Future anthology and check out Mike. So Mike, where can our viewers go to learn more about you? I know we've flashed it on the screen, but tell us again where we can go.
Yeah, the best place is going to be my website, MikeJackStoumbos.com. You can also subscribe to the newsletter there, and I will be coming out with sort of monthly. Here's what's on the docket, including where I'm going to be showing up to some of the conferences and conventions in the near future. There's also a Facebook page, Mike Jack Stoumbos, and those are going to be the two best places to be able to check up on the regular updates.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us, Mike. And viewers, you're definitely going to want to follow Mike. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.